Hey, I'm Ryan. Welcome to No Bad Days. I just want to say thanks to everybody for all your views and comments and messages on the last couple of videos. It's been really awesome to see the feedback, and I really appreciate it. For anybody that's new to the channel, I'm kind of here to tell a little bit about my experiences with addiction and mental health and just general life changes as I've grown up as an individual. Life hasn't been easy, but it's definitely better every day, and I just want to say thanks. So we'll get right into it. So in the past couple episodes, I've spoke a little bit about what my life was like before I suffered from addiction and before I really recognized my mental health issues and kind of what life has kind of led up to until now. So basically where we'll pick up is kind of at that turning point when I just returned home from treatment. I'd just done a 45-day inpatient treatment stay, and now I was coming home to basically find Ryan. Everybody, well, the vast majority of people in my life have known me as Dunna, which is my nickname. And a lot of people wouldn't have even have known my first name. And it was kind of my kind of recognition that nobody really knew Ryan. And so not only did other people not know me, but I didn't know me. I'd been wearing so many different masks and kind of putting up a different facade for so long that I had to kind of figure out who I was. So that's kind of where we'll start off. I returned home to the apartment that I was in previous to treatment. I was blessed enough to have my parents pay the rent for me to be able to stay there one more month as I was behind on my rent. And I was coming home to what I thought was going to be lots of people in place to kind of help me and support me. But what I quickly realized is that I really wasn't prepared for what was to come next. My parents had left for out of town immediately upon my arrival, as they had pre-organized plans. And I kind of had to figure it out on my own and based off a little bit of my discharge plan. So the only thing I really planned to do when I returned home was that I intended to go to 90 AA meetings in 90 days, whether that was AA, CAA, or NA. I was going to go to 90 12-step programs, 90 days straight. That's the only thing I had definitively in plans to do. So that's basically where I started. First day, I called up one of my friends who's been a friend since basically grade 7. He is in recovery as well, and he said he'd help me get to my first meeting. So that was really nice. It was kind of the icebreaker going into a new kind of place for me. I had been in, when I was in treatment, we went to meetings basically every day, but this was really my first time venturing out on my own. So we went to a meeting, and I returned back to my apartment for my first night's stay. Again, on my own. Something that I did not disclose to anybody is that I still had 10 beers hidden in my house from when I went to treatment. That was the stupidest decision I ever made, and why I allowed myself to be tormented by that for an entire night's sleep. I kept them in the house. I didn't get rid of them right away. I woke up the first morning, and I basically had a decision. I could go with the beers, or I could start on this new journey, and thank God I made the right decision. I poured those beers out, and the dread that came over me pouring them out, thinking that somebody may look in the window or see me with a beer in my hand, it was so scary. But I poured them out and never looked back. It was such a freeing moment for me, just to know that this thing didn't have this wrangle on my life anymore. So that's kind of where my first morning started. I didn't really have a plan of attack outside of going to these meetings, and I didn't have Wi-Fi or anything like that, so I was kind of setting myself up to be pretty bored. But I did have a local library close by, so that's what I started to do. All that I knew that I wanted in my life at this point is I wanted to figure out who Ryan was, and I wanted to be happy. And I didn't know how to be happy because I hadn't felt feelings for so long. So I went to the library and I started taking out documentaries because they were free on DVD to rent. And I would pick up anything that related to spirituality, hope, change, anything like that, and I just started watching them. And I'd watch them start to finish, whether they were good or bad, and I started writing things down. I started taking it all in. And I realized that there were so many different avenues for me to get knowledge from that I never even knew existed. So I started to embrace that, and I saw some really good ones that really clicked with me, and that allowed me to kind of set my path on where I kind of wanted to go. So what I knew worked for me, and especially with my anxiety, was that having a positive outlook on life really increased my ability to get through every day and feel good about it. So what I basically did is I used the tools I'd learned in treatment, combined with now this new positive outlook on life, and I kind of took that with me everywhere I went. My brain, I don't believe, is naturally wired to go to these positive thought patterns. I I really am that person that when anything happens, I instantly go to this negative space. I get defensive very easily. My ego comes into play very easily. So I basically had to train my brain, no different than you'd train a muscle at the gym, to think positively. So when those negative thoughts would come in, I'd flip it and literally start to think about the positive of it. And I'd have to force myself to do this. And the way that I can best relate it, especially coming from my snowboarding background, was when you be in the backcountry and you're walking this path for the first time. The first boot pack is always the worst. It's the deepest, biggest struggle. And that's kind of like that first thought pattern. It's always the toughest. But the more you walk it, the clearer the path gets. Eventually what's happened is that now when I go to these negative thoughts, it kind of instantly jumps to the positive thought. It's not to say I don't have negative thoughts, but I go to the positive much more often than not. So having this new outlook on life, I could start to see the positive things in life. It's one of those things where whatever you're looking for, you're ultimately going to see. You want to buy a new car, so you're looking at a Toyota Corolla. All of a sudden you start to see Toyota Corollas all over. Well, it's the same thing. I started looking for positivity, and I would see positivity all over. And it was such a great feeling, not to sit in this darkness anymore. So when I was in active addiction, I thought I was fighting to get out of it. But what I ultimately realized is that I was fighting to stay in it. Everything that I was reaching for was being self-sabotaged. And it took the treatment and individuals like Ken in my life to really show me I was just off my path. I was on somebody else's journey. One of the most important things that I was taught was to check my intentions. And ultimately what that means is anything I do in life, whether it's making this video, buying something, getting into relationships, why am I doing this? And what that allows me to do is it gives myself a second to kind of feel out the situation and really check in with myself as to what my purpose is and why I'm making these decisions. It really helped me increase my self-awareness, which in turn allowed me to be more self-aware when I'm going to a negative thought pattern. It's not easy, but I do it. And again, it gives me this break from being like this instantly judgmental or snap reaction to everything and turning everything into this negative space. When you struggle with mental health, it's hard to figure things out. And what I realized over time is that all these struggles that I really faced were all in here. All my pain and struggle was in my head. I experienced so much trauma in my life, vast a majority which never actually happened. There would be like the scenarios where, your boss says, hey, I need to talk to you quick. I would instantly go to this, I'm getting fired and this and that. And, not once has that ever happened. But I'd have this scenario played out, like the whole conversation played out. And there's things that never came true. And I'd put myself through this duress and stress for no reason. So with all that, I just changed the way I looked at things. And like I said, it wasn't easy. I have to train myself to do that. And I still do slip up here and there. But it's really impacted my life in such a great way. It allows me to be a better person to others. I have to apologize a lot less. And it's really given me the opportunity to kind of step out of the box. With that self-awareness has come the ability to accept myself for who I am. I make mistakes. I can accept my follies today. Just like my last video, there's things that I say that, are jumbled words or something pops up that's not supposed to. That's okay. I'm not a professional at this. And I know that, which is awesome, and I can laugh at it myself. I've gotten some really good feedback about my videos, and one thing that kind of gets brought up often is, it'd be great if you showed kind of how funny you were, and it is really difficult to come across on camera. But I apparently am a pretty witty person, and I will start to show that a little bit more, but it's hard to show on camera, and there's not a whole lot to, chuckle about when it's just me by myself, although I do find myself pretty entertaining. But I just kind of wanted to touch base with how to get started on that change. So whether it's addiction, relationship changes, job changes, things like that, I had to look back at my past and all the things that I'd done negatively and all the things that I'd done successfully and I was proud of. And, and I had this past life known as Donna, and I really identified as that. I was known as the snowboarder, skateboard guy, and I really felt that that's who I was, and that was at the base of me, that was my identity. When I came out of treatment and I no longer had that business, I never skateboarded or snowboarded anymore. I resented it for that matter. I had to find myself. And it was hard. but it was a little bit easier as I became a little bit more aware, and I'd see the things that were bringing positive bliss and joy into my life, and realize that I am not my job. I am not the sport that I do. I am me, and I'm good enough just the way I am. And what that allowed me to do was take away all that pain and resentment that I had towards snowboarding and things like that, and I was able to get back out and enjoy them. And my passion for things came back, and that was really important for me. I had to, upon arrival at my home, start figuring out who Ryan was and what ultimately my start of my journey was going to look like. And I had to reconnect with a lot of things that I hadn't done in a long time. And a lot of those things were the things that I stopped doing because people said they weren't cool, or I wasn't supposed to do that because, you know, skateboarders don't do this, things like that. And what I found out is that I had stopped doing a lot of things because it didn't jive with other people's opinions. And those are the things at the core of me I really enjoyed doing. So oddly enough, I stopped biking because when you're a skateboarder, generally speaking, you're not a biker as well. And now I work in the bike industry. Still love skateboarding and snowboarding, and I'm super passionate about cycling as well, which is awesome. It's given me the opportunity to really kind of look at myself and see where my kind of morals and principles align. And I'm grateful for that today. And this is just the beginning. And because I've had this great opportunity, I can dream a little bit further. Another important thing for me when I first got home was to have some short-term goals. I am a person that really needs to see results, and long-term goals require patience, which is not one of my great character traits. I need to see some short-term goals. And in order to do that, I had to have something to reach towards. So that would be basic progress and growth. So the biggest thing that I can recommend to anybody is constantly keep trying to level up. And if that just even means, like, you know, learning a little bit more, focusing a little bit more on being healthy, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, things like that. For me, for instance, my first thing that I was able to measure my growth on was the fact that I started to shower every day. And that may seem like the most minuscule thing, but that is something that I do every single day, no matter what, first thing, is having simply a shower, because that allows me a fresh start every day. And then I'd start to incorporate other things into it. So I needed this structure in order to be able to find the growth in myself. And, you know, I started to do that in every aspect of my life. I started to try to level everything up. So, you know, out of treatment, no job, I got a job. And I started to work hard there. And then an actual funny way, as I'm kind of rambling here, is I think I can think about, like, my keys, for instance. My set of keys. When I came out of treatment, I had one key, and that was to my apartment, which was back rented, that my parents paid to rent for me at that point. And then I added another key, and that was a key to my parents' house, which in recovery they allowed me to then have a key to their house as well. And then I got a job, and then eventually I got a key to that job. And then after a little bit longer, I was able to buy my first car. And then after that, I was able to buy another car. So I think about, like, my keys as an example of just the growth that I've seen in 4 years. When I started, I had access to one thing, and that was the only thing that I was able to do because that's the only thing people trusted me with. Now I look at my keys, and it's kind of a pain to carry them all around. These are all an example of how many people trust me and allow me to do things in life today. So it's all these little measures of things of growth that I get to see every day. It's easy to overlook them and to sell ourselves short, but at the end of the day, I'm moving forward in every aspect of my life. And that's important for me. And I wouldn't be here today if it didn't all start with finding out who Ryan is, what are my intentions, and starting on my journey, not somebody else's. So if I can leave you with something, if there's anything you're willing to do in your life and you're ready to make this change, there's a couple some simple things that you have to do. You have to be willing, which is just kind of, you know, yeah, I'm willing to make this change. Make a decision to make that change, and then put it into action. And once you put it into action, it's all uphill from there, and it's going to be challenging, but you can do it. I have done it. I started from the bottom, and continue to grow every single day. And, you know, the best part about it is when I go to bed at night is I'm excited to wake up in the morning to see what tomorrow brings me instead of dreading it. Like I said earlier, life isn't easy, but it is definitely better. And I would really ask that anybody has any comments or anything like that of your personal experiences with growth or challenge, or maybe something you identified with that you've changed away from. I know I've got a lot of friends who are were professional athletes and now are doing different things. My father, for instance, was a professional athlete and then had a majorly successful career afterwards. But still, people talk about the professional athlete aspect, So we are not our jobs. We are individuals at the core, and and the things that we did in the past aren't who we are either. They're just some things we've encountered. So yeah, if you could comment, shoot me a message, anything like that. Let me know your personal changes that you want to see, things like that, and check your intentions. The same thing when I was about to make this video, I had a different idea where I was going to take this, and I just needed to get this out. And what I've learned from the couple videos I filmed is I just need to put out what's kind of in my heart, what I'm feeling. So hopefully this connects with you in some way or another. Any feedback is greatly appreciated, and thank you so much for watching. Click subscribe and share it with anyone and everyone. I'm looking forward to making many, many more. And sorry if I rambled, but that's sometimes how I am. So thanks so much. Have an amazing day, and don't forget, no bad days.